Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and I have with me today Jonathan Williams from the American Legislative Exchange Council. And we've been talking about rich states, poor states, which is the study that you did, an index, which kind of takes policies that elected officials are able to affect, right?
Yep.
So it looks at the policies and it says which ones are hurting us and which ones are helping. And depending on what states have the more good ones, they're richer. Their people are richer. And the ones that have the most bad ones are poorer.
Yeah, and you know, my co-author Art Laffer says it great, and he says, this isn't rocket surgery, as he likes to say. This is pretty simple. It's economics 101. It's really math, right? What makes a state a more competitive state? It's having the highest standard of living at the lowest cost of living.
Yeah.
And we look at those policies that really make a difference in that regard.
All right. So let's talk about estate taxes. A lot of us call those the death taxes.
The death tax, yeah.
Because you die, not something everybody is looking forward to, and everything that you've earned over your lifetime is taxed. You were telling a story about a billionaire in New Jersey.
Yeah, you know, by reports, he was the wealthiest man in New Jersey. His name is David Tepper. He's a hedge fund billionaire, and he recently decided to pick up and move. And as we were talking about, vote with his feet, go to someplace else more favorable. He happened to choose Florida, which not only is nicer in the winter with the beaches, but it also has a couple of other attributes. One, it's a no personal income tax state on wage income. There are 9 of those states across the country. We follow that closely in rich states, poor states, and we find that's a big factor in terms of enhancing economic opportunity, certainly for somebody like David Tepper.
Sure.
But secondly, the death tax, as you talked about. No death tax in Florida, but New Jersey has some of the highest in the country. So he's going to save a whole lot of money by moving. Unfortunately, what are the ramifications, though? That's the second order effect that a lot of people don't talk about, in that in the first few months after David Tepper left, the government officials in New Jersey are already reporting that there's going to be a huge revenue hit to the budget because he left. He just picked up and left, right?
And he's not paying income taxes, he's not paying sales taxes, he's not paying property taxes.
Yeah.
He's gone, and all of the money that he was giving to government went with him.
Yeah, you can have a huge tax rate, let's say 10%, but what's 10% of nothing, right?
That's it.
Because when he left, you're going to get absolutely nothing, and states can't build walls to keep people in, right? That's one of their key lessons, is just how mobile Americans, especially businesses, are across states, because it's very similar to do business in Florida as it is in other U.S. states. It's not like you have to renounce your citizenship or anything to do the inversions that we've been seeing on TV with Pfizer and Burger King and a lot of these big companies.
Sure.
It's very simple. We've had decades of these really domestic inversions that we've been seeing. And the other effect is he's going to take his charitable contributions with him, too.
I was going to mention that. I bet he was a philanthropist because he had the money to give to charities, to the food banks and the American Cancer Society or whatever was his local charities.
That's right.
And they're gone.
That's right. So the Boys and Girls Club of Florida is going to get his donation instead of the Boys and Girls Club in New Jersey. And that's one of the things at ALEC that we've studied, is just how much taxes hurt charitable giving. And it's because of things like this, is that people give more when they have more in terms of disposable income, but when people leave, they're going to take their charitable contributions with them. And so it's another damaging effect of high taxes. And when you look at death taxes, for instance, some of the least popular forms of taxes, when you poll the American public, gas taxes and tolls, I know that you've fought those here
yes,
for a very long time, and then property taxes and death taxes. Those are the 3 least popular taxes among the American people, and for good reason.
Yeah, for good reason. I know here in Rhode Island, actually, we have had wealthy folks leaving, and again, Florida's nice, but they grew up here in Rhode Island. They would stay if they could.
That's right.
Right? We've made it too hard for them to stay in Rhode Island.
That's right.
So they leave. And they do leave. A hole is created when they take their wealth, their taxes, their charitable giving with them.
And their influence within their communities, right?
And their talents.
That's right. Their innovation, their talents, I mean, all those things that you can't measure apart from the dollars and cents. But I think why Americans don't like death taxes is it's not just because they don't raise a lot of money in the grand scheme of things for the budget.
They really
it's
don't.
It's a tiny percentage of Rhode Island budget.
Yeah, it's about $25 million.
So it's insignificant in terms of any programs to support. But why they don't like it, it's an immoral tax. These people have been taxed on that same income several times throughout their lives, and now as they die, they're asking their loved ones to pay the tax man once again, and in many cases liquidate businesses to pay the tax bill.
Yes.
Family businesses.
That's it. And then it weakens that business, and the business goes under.
Yeah.
So there goes jobs again. So death tax, one of the things that you look at in here. You also look at cronyism. That's
Yes.
been in the news here in Rhode Island recently.
And you've been fighting it.
And I've been
For a very
fighting
long
it
time.
for a very long time, for a decade. Tell me what around cronyism, how do you measure it and how do you look at it? It's usually hidden from sight, but it's there.
That's a very good point in terms of cronyism. Is the first hurdle is we need more government spending transparency. That's
Oh,
something
transparency.
that ALEC
We've been
has worked
talking about
on
that
for
too.
years.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of our model policies is on the books. It calls for a state budget transparency website for anyone to come in and search and find the spending areas, find areas of cronyism. We in fact modeled this after the federal law that was authored by none other than Senator Barack Obama at the time, and took that idea in ALEC model policy format and brought it to the states for this model policy for spending transparency. We find that transparency is key to uncover cronyism. But then, how do you measure it? It's basically when government gets in the business of picking winners and losers, and instead of having everyone play by the same rules and treating everyone equally, when you start to create divisions within the tax code, especially, we look at subsidies, but we also look at tax carve-outs. We call it tax cronyism. And that is when one company or one industry gets special treatment over another. And now it's very complicated because many times industries will get special treatment because it's making up for a bad tax policy somewhere else to try to equalize the playing field. Our view is flatten the tax out, let everybody play by the same rules, and get rid of all this complexity, because that's the thing, is cronyism breeds tax complexity. And it wasn't too many weeks ago
on an
that everyone
unfair
just filed
playing
their
field.
taxes. Well, right, on an unfair playing field, and everyone just filed their taxes, and you realize how complex the system can be, especially if you're a small business owner. But what breeds that is tax cronyism, and it creates an unfair playing field where a lot of times it's not the small businesses that are getting the benefits either. The people who are the innovators, the startups, the job creators, they're not the ones qualifying for these special deals. And so that's something we've been very vigilant at, tracking across the states and trying to put an end to this business of cronyism in the tax code.
And it's crony capitalism, it's cronyism anywhere.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things that I've really struggled with, I'm so glad there's a model policy on transparency, because as a legislator, I have been struggling with this administration over transparency issues, as has the media. I'm an elected official. I have to hand in an official access to public records request to get information, and then they just label everything an internal document or preliminary so that I won't get it anyway. It's just been, I want to see that model policy.
Oh, absolutely. It's on the site,
that model
and
policy.
you know, it's something that, you know, I think it breeds distrust of government from the average
It
person
should.
in Rhode Island to say, hey, if even Representative Morgan doesn't have access to the things that she needs to have access to as an elected representative of ours, how can we as average everyday taxpayers across the state be expected to understand what's going on in state government?
Yeah, exactly. We need the tools to see what our government is doing. And I know there's more, but we're really at the end of our time. So I'm just going to take a moment to kind of summarize. This is a really good book.
Well, thank you.
Because it helps me as a legislator and my colleagues kind of figure out what we're doing right in Rhode Island and what we're doing wrong. We have made some good moves lately.
That's right.
We're moving up the scale, but we need to make a whole lot more, because Rhode Islanders are struggling right now. And the things that ALEC is doing, giving us information and data and model policies, will help us make Rhode Island stronger. So thank you very much for your work.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for all work here on behalf of taxpayers of Rhode Island.
Thank you. I hope to have you back soon.
I'd love to.
Okay.